Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another amazing topic of conversation. I want to thank our sponsors, the Health Channel. Please sign up for their newsletter so you can have all the updates on a healthy living. Also from Finkelman's for the Chef in You and Alexa's Workshop for all your needs in office space or boardrooms or anything you need regarding co-working spaces. And from the Power of the Heels, we're very happy to say that March 1st will be kicking off Women's History Month with our Disruptive Monarchy 2 event, the new royals, and we're bringing back royal correspondent, TV journalist, and best-selling author, Katie Nichol. So please go to our website, thepoweroftheheels.org, and sign up. And also, we would love to see you on our monthly networking, the second Thursday of every month at the AC in Aventura. So, Chris, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Gladys.
This is really exciting because it touches me from every single point. So today's conversation is about the evolution of the events. And there are 5 stages that we can both talk about. Going back to when we started our own company.
Correct.
So let's start before the 2000s when you mentioned that it was called party planners.
Yes, I remember that I was a young mother. I had 3 children. I was looking for something to do to go back into the workforce that would be sort of part-time and I could make my own hours. And I was at a celebration for a friend of mine, and the light bulb clicked off that I could become a party planner. And I had experience living in South Florida of either co-chairing or sitting on committees for large networking events. And I had done quite a bit of that, as well as before I had children, I had worked in businesses where there was some type of events component to them. So I felt that I had the strong business background and skill set to do this. And so I remember I called myself a party planner, and so did the clients.
Well, for me, it was a little different because, well, many moons ago, I used to have a cosmetic business and I couldn't compete with advertising with all the famous brands. So I put together events to bring the people in to know about the cosmetics. Because I know you do 90% of social. On the other side, I do more corporate and marketing events.
Right. But they both have, all events have the same components, more or less.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And I remember a few years later, I went to a conference for the event industry in Las Vegas, and a woman who was a keynote speaker who worked for the MGM Grand, she said, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, if you think you are a party planner, which is now called an event planner, you're not, you're actually an event producer. And I would love it if all the planners in this room would start calling yourselves producers, because in essence, that's what you do. You handle everything from A to Z to produce your client's vision and bring it to life. So I changed my business card that said event planner to event producer. And I'm happy to say these days I see more of us calling ourselves producers.
Well, that was the shift. And I think that was the second stage when when the industry started professionalizing a little more, instead of just women that wanted their own schedule, and they knew that they wanted to do events and they were making a living off it. So that was like the first stage. And then the universities and colleges actually starting professionalizing it and created the hospitality industry, but they didn't create an event producer or an event planner as a career.
They did not. They
Which was
touched upon.
interesting.
Yeah, they touched upon it. You know, there were textbooks that were starting to be written for these courses, and they covered the gamut from a corporate event. In fact, they came more from the corporate side.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you wanted to do a trade show, or if you wanted to have a conference or a festival, you know, that was what it was. It really wasn't for the wedding industry or to celebrate a 40th birthday. It was bigger than that.
It was more for, I think it was more for concerts, what kicked it off.
I would say that you're right. But it bled right into our industry because it helped start to make a professional industry. So for example, you know, how was the party planner or event planner supposed to understand what was needed to go into a hotel room in terms of vendors, insurance, and event documents, loading schedules, and things of that nature? So it helped us to jump in on a higher level than what had previously existed.
Yeah, it was very simple. I remember those tracks. It was very extremely simple. And then we went into the 2008, which was the recession time.
Right. And of course, it affected corporations and how they spent their money, and it affected social celebrations and how they spent their money. It's almost like our industry stopped completely for several years, and it was very scary because it took a few years to come back.
Well, I remember that the biggest feeling that I had was that the phone didn't ring.
Right.
And that was a scary situation, that the phone rang like every day or many times a day, and the phone was silent through time. But on that sense, I used to do 100% corporate at that time. And I remember that when the recession hit, especially in Miami, when there was a hotel that had resort and spa, remember that you couldn't do an event because it was seen not appropriate. So
correct.
There was only one hotel in Miami that didn't have resort and spa, and that was the only venue we could do something.
Right. The optics were not good at that time for spending money. And I remember my younger two daughters were in middle school. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, you know, preteen daughters need a mother around. So maybe this is just a sign that I have to, you know, spend some time with my girls. So I had a really great couple of years. At that time, Miami was on the up and up. It was, you know, Art Basel was already here. They were building condominiums and opening restaurants like crazy. There were cranes everywhere, all over South Florida, and they stopped. Everything stopped and went away for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden, the cranes started coming back and some restaurants started opening again. And I said to my husband, we're back. We're going to be back soon. And that was a pivotal moment for my business. I don't know about you, Gladys, but for me, I went from a home-based sort of part-time business to I want to get an office and I want to get out of my house and I want to be dressed every day. And I want to see if going out and networking and, you know, meeting people all over South Florida would help my business. And I think that it did. I think it was good time, 2012, 2013. And we had quite a run since
Well,
then.
for me, during the 2008 and 2010, I literally survived on social.
Right.
That's when I started to do social events. So I did weddings, I did anniversaries. I completely changed to social. And I remember that I think it was 2009 or 2010, I was named wedding planner of the year. So it was like completely a whole thing. But yes, when the cranes started coming up, we all started shifting more to the corporate.
Right. And to what we knew. And I also remember, I mean, we were really, a lot of things happened though in the first decade of 2000 to help our hospitality industry be taken more seriously. And somehow along the way, the party planner or event planner or wedding planner became a necessity, not a luxury. Because even if you could not afford a full service planner, you still wanted somebody to coordinate for you that day.
But it wasn't like a recognized profession.
No.
It wasn't like, and then after the recession, it really took off. It was like they really saw, I think it was Forbes that actually came up with an article on the $1 billion industry of events.
Right.
And that's when all the events, like the special events, started a track on professionalizing. And then the other big industry events started to really give you credit for everything that you were doing.
Yes. And social media wasn't really in the picture just yet. It was on the cusp of becoming something, with Facebook, but it was really Instagram that was a big game changer because it showed the world what you could have and it made it exciting to see
I
the
think
events.
before Instagram, it was Pinterest.
And yes, absolutely. And both are still very relevant today for the visuals that they provide.
Well, I remember that back then in 2010, Office Depot used to put a big conference. And I remember that I was called to be a speaker on social media, and I had no clue what social media was. And I was like, okay, why me? And they said, you're one of the few people that sends out newsletters. And that's when I learned that that was social media.
Remember? I remember it well.
And I remember my newsletters were really cool. And everything. So that's how we started promoting all the business. Then it came Pinterest, then Twitter. It was only after Twitter then Instagram became, and with the second generation.
Right. You're right. And TikTok seems to be following right along. But I think that it was we're always educating. We're always educating our clients and our prospective clients. And all of a sudden it was legitimized what we did every day because we didn't do anything different than we did the day we started working in the industry. It's just that all of a sudden the whole world knew that if you wanted to have a flawless wedding or corporate event or social celebration, that you might want to consider hiring an event planner.
Yeah, but you used to literally, how do you say it? It was like telling, okay, you need to pay me because I'm doing this and this and that job. Nobody asked if they had to go to a doctor and pay his fees.
Right.
We had to literally give them a whole list on why we earned what we do.
Truly.
And it's actually considered the second most stressful profession after firefighters.
Isn't that amazing? I didn't believe that statistic and I had to go read it for myself. But you and I know that the level of stress is real and that longevity in this industry and experience in this industry is worth something. And as an industry, we had to grow up and begin to value what we did so that we could begin to charge properly for the mega hours that we put in for our clients' events, which I'm still not sure. I used to say if we divided the number of hours that we worked by the salary, we were in the negative.
No, don't even go there. Don't even go there. Don't even go there because if you divide it by the hours, no.
Right.
So before we go into the last stage of the events, which was post-COVID, before we go to that, what are the biggest lessons that you learned through that decade? And what would be something that you would tell the next generation?
Well, I think the next generation is slightly aware of this already because remember, we have raised the next generation. So I would say that it's really important to value the work that we do and value what we deserve to be paid for it. And so that we can expect that our clients will understand that. So I felt that in the beginning, we charged what we thought the market would bear, not what the value of our work was. So I would say that that is one of the biggest things. And I would also say that the younger generation also knows what it took us as business owners at least 10 years to learn probably. And that is that we cannot just work as small business owners, and we are the largest group. Small business owners of all industries are the largest group of workers in our country, that we have to, not only value what we do, but we have to work from the business mindset of understanding that you can work in the business. We watched our parents and our family work very hard every day in their jobs, but we have to work on the business in order to grow in a direction that makes sense. And when I say work on the business, it's because things change all around us while we're working in the business. And if we don't work on it globally, then eventually most small businesses fail. And that was my experience, that after 10 years, I really had to go back to the drawing board, get some more education, and get a better understanding of what it's like to be a business owner in order to stay with any type of longevity in the business.
No, and the other part is that when people think that you just do events, is that you don't have, it's very different of being an event producer or an event planner. And another thing is owning your own business, because they don't take into account that you have to pay insurance, rent, all of the above. So it's a completely different ballgame.
Yes, it is. But I will say to you that the biggest lesson that I've learned in the last 20 years is that if I want to be happy and stay happy and come to work happy every day, because now it's not just about a paycheck, now it's about lifestyle and wellness. And so to bring all of those things into the business, I had to let go of some of the teachings that I had since my early 20s, that I was indoctrinated on how to work and how to be the best worker, and sort of throw that away and look at what today's small business has to look at is, where do you want to be? And
and what do you want to do? But I remember my biggest issue with myself, because I think we had the same path going forward, And remember that back in those days, the client was 100% right. Remember
Right.
and that was the biggest lesson. The client is 100% right. And I remember going to my mentor and say, can I fire a client? Because I wasn't happy. It was becoming a big issue. And she said, yes, of course you can hire a client. Just write a very nice letter saying that this cannot be, that this is not going the way you planned, that this, and she said, figure out how much you want to give her back, and that's it. And I remember that big lesson, and I met with the person. I had this beautiful letter and the check for the 100% full of the money.
Bye.
And I said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I cannot do this anymore. This is my complete professional fee, so you can hire somebody. And she said, this is not going to look good either for you or for me. We're 3 weeks away from a huge event, so let's make it happen. And I wasn't expecting that, actually.
But I bet you that the reasons why you didn't want to have this client anymore, the dynamic shifted when she realized that you were not going to be treated this way, that you were the professional, you were the expert, you weren't being, trusted to get the job done. And I understand that. And in fact, in the creative world that we work in, the client is not always right. On the contrary, the client has to decide when they hire a creative team that they're the team for them, because the design team will follow your vision and your expected outcome, but they're going to do it the way they know it needs to be done, and the way that they show it on their website, and the way they show it on their Instagram, and the way they show it on their Pinterest. And that's why you hired them to begin with. So we all have clients that are runaway clients that think that they work in the office with us, but it's really up to us to be able to set that hard line in the sand, so to speak, where they are the client and we are the event professional, and they are paying us for our expertise. And it is what it is. I too have had on occasion to let go of a client, but it really starts, if I could back it up, especially in this last phase of, pre-COVID and post-COVID phases of knowing who your right fit client is, and making sure that we are attracting the right clients.
But wait, that is 15 years later.
Ish, yeah.
That is 15 years later, not now. But my next question for you is, how do you educate a client on an industry that they are not aware, and when you pass them a proposal, they go, wait, no, this is not possible. And they do not know the prices or what it entails. They don't know the whole thing. So how do you educate? I call it educating the client.
Yes, me too. It's a great question. So at Chris Weinberg events, the first contact that we have typically with a client now is through our contact page on our website. And most clients, 99% of clients, will contact us through our website. And one of the questions there's just a few questions. One of them is, what is your intended budget allocation, or, your where do you want to be in your budget? And we also ask how many guests, what kind of an event it is, if they have venues in mind, or what time of the year, the date, and all of these things get factored into pricing. So more often than not, I know that if a client wants to be at a certain venue with a certain number of guests on a Saturday night in season, that the number that they put is not representative of what the actual cost is.
Right.
So I can speak to that. One of the things that we do here that I don't know of other planners that do it, I'm sure there are, I don't know too many, is before we go to contract, because I never want to have to give money back. And I never want to have an uncomfortable conversation about money with a client in the middle of the process. So one of the things that we do is we create an estimated range of cost budget that's line itemed with a low end and a high end. And our low end is really, really nice. And the high end is for all those extra bells and whistles that we know our clients, as they get closer to the event, they want. They want to invite more people. They want to hire some live entertainment. They want to spend more money. They have a lot of things that emotionally, and I know that doesn't happen as much in the corporate world, but it happens there. No, it doesn't, but it can, you know? So I think that is their first eye-opening experience, where they have that many of our clients live where they live in the social world, live where they live, drive the cars that they drive, eat in the restaurants that they eat in, take fabulous vacations, but they not all necessarily want to do that for 200 people for one night. So if somebody is used to going to the, you know, Ritz-Carlton to stay for the weekend, they might have a sticker shock when they find out how much a wedding at the Ritz-Carlton for 200 people could cost in high season. Not everybody, but the majority need to be educated. So that's one of the things that we do. And plus, it also helps us get to a budget range where the client is comfortable. And that helps us, to suggest vendors and creative teams to join the process without wasting time and spinning the wheels of clients who are very busy and the vendor teams as well.
Correct. Yeah, it's more or less the same thing. Like literally is going out to a restaurant and having a dinner, but multiply it by how many people you want. That's the whole thing. It's the variable cost versus the fixed cost.
But when we started, back to the early stages, the level of sophistication of the restaurants and the level of service that 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star venues would provide and the clients would demand was nothing. And so with the rise of social media, with the rise of the next generations of decision makers, there has been this tremendous uptick of what is expected. Excuse me. So to match that expectation, it costs money. Yep. And so one of the first, and we don't make any decisions for our clients. We bring them all the options and the choices, and we allow them, they must drive it because they have very strong opinions, or if it's corporate, they know where they need to be. They know what their bosses are expecting. So it's a process in the beginning. And then once they're signed, it's a process until the day of. But I would say the first part is a lot of education about pricing, about what they can expect. And you and I know that because our industry is not really so regulated, that the difference between what one event planner or producer can charge versus another could be very different. So everybody's business model is a little different. So oftentimes you have a client saying, well, I've spoken to other planners and, you know, this one is this price, this one is this price, and this one is this price. You know, can you please explain the differences? And that's when we have to have that conversation that, you know, some are apples and some are oranges.
And no, you're right. And the way I see it is that you have to have a chemistry because you're going to deal with that person, regardless if it's social, corporate, marketing, or anything. You're going to have to deal with that person for at least 2-3 months. And I've dealt with some events that take a year to plan. So you deal with that person for a whole year and you have to like that person. Like I have some of my best friends were started as clients.
Sure. And they don't really change. Just like your best friend or your Aunt Lucy or your, just clients are the same. That what you start with is what you stay with the whole time. The only difference is that hopefully they come to trust you through the process. They see your expertise, they see you making smart decisions, and they start to relax a little more and a little more, and allow us to do what we need to do to get the job done.
The way I call it is that we are psychologists, psychiatrists that give you peace of mind until the day of.
100%. And I would say 50% of our job is that we should have multiple degrees, because most of what we do as planners or producers is communicate with the client, with the vendor team, and we leave the decor of the room, the food menus, and all the creative parts to creative companies that are on the
to
team.
The experts.
Sure.
It's like a doctor. The general doctor sends you to the ear doctor if your ear hurts. So the ear doctor prescribes what you need.
Right.
That's the whole thing. So post-COVID, I know that during COVID, yes, it was like another step back. It was really hard on all of us. And now I see that social never completely stopped altogether, 100%. Corporate did. It completely shut off. But social kept on going, even though it was little bit. And now it's starting, everything coming back as before. Are there any big changes moving forward that you have seen pre-COVID and post-COVID?
Yes, well, for us here in Florida was very different than the rest of the country. In social, the state of Florida opened up very early in 2021, so less than a year after COVID was announced. And most of our small businesses were shut down for at least 6 or 8 months, and some went out of business. So it was very challenging in the beginning to get up and running and navigate through all the different social rights and wrongs for COVID, and then get through the vaccination process. And, not having corporate there was also difficult, because in the social world, most social events happen on the weekends and most corporate events happen during the week. And the corporate world helped the social world, meaning we have more rental items and more options and more companies and more opportunities to work with. So I feel that it was a little challenging to come back really quickly, and then add to it that all of a sudden we had supply chain issues and we had labor concerns. People didn't want to come back to work. And then when they did, they wanted to come back to work for more money. So I would say that in 2021 and 2022 were social, but they were also a rebuild of the industry and a shift where we saw pricing go up as much as 30% across the board. And now, but we had no corporate, so it was a little quiet. But now we are really back very strong all the way around. However, I have not seen catering pricing go down. I have not seen production go down to pre-COVID pricing. And I don't know that we ever will.
Even worse.
Right. So that's one of the big changes, that, whatever you paid pre-COVID for an event, you should probably add about 30% to it. And that would be the new pricing today.
You don't think it's going to come down?
I don't know. You never really know, because in a recession, it's possible. But the last recession we experienced, we didn't experience pricing coming down. We experienced a complete shutdown of spending for corporate events and even social. you know, the ones that were already booked, they finished because they already had money on the table and deposits and skin in the game. But we did not get a lot of new clients during recession. It came as soon as recession kind of ended.
Yeah, but I don't think that people are talking about the recession in a sense of completely shutting down.
I don't either.
No,
And for
because
us, right.
People are still, on the contrary, they're planning ahead on what they're doing for the year to come, especially corporate.
Right. And, you know, I've always been in the luxury niche of the industry. And in luxury, there's always been money to spend. So I don't think that the luxury end of the industry, whether it's corporate or social, will suffer too much in the next year or so. But there's always outside circumstances that are beyond our control, like wars and countries and things like that. So, you know, none of us have a crystal ball. But right now, we're just happy to see corporate come back, because when corporate comes back, there's so much money in the industry. That's why we have 40 different rental chairs now. When you and I started, right? How many rental chairs?
One.
Exactly. Shavari. That's it. Right. And now we have.
And I remember it was so expensive
to rent a chair.
To rent a chair. I remember I was doing an event up north in New York, and while here was like $6-7, in New York was like 15 or 18. You go,
right.
Really?
And now we see rental chairs on the regular that are $28 and $30 a chair, and people rent them. So, but it's because of the corporate world that rents so frequently that we have all of these different kinds of tables and different kinds of draping and different kinds of, you know, tabletops, and, you know, especially in tech, you know, the lighting and the LED
lighting,
screen,
and I call it the little games.
Yeah, for sure. And those things would have been very expensive to cost prohibitive if it wasn't for the corporate world bringing that business. And then those companies said, well, you know, we could work 7 days a week if we, you know, if we wanted to. So I'm very grateful to the corporate world for opening up our industry. I said one of the things that made a huge difference.
Yeah. Chris, thank you so much. I think we could stay here forever talking about all the lessons learned. We never even got to tell even a war story or a good story, but if you want to end up with a really memorable story, please.
For sure. And maybe this will be part one of future conversations that we can have. Thank you so much, Gladys, for having me on your podcast. I'm truly honored. I love our industry. I love everybody that works in our industry. And I think that what you're doing is helping to unite us all. And it's a really wonderful thing. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. And everybody else, above all, stay safe, and I'll see you next week. Have a great day.
Bye.